Hey, folks. I wanted to take some time now that the descent into Avernus, module had completed, ran it with my family, some friends, friends of my kids, etc. I We talked a little bit about it um, after the last adventure, part 13, and I was thinking about doing this even before that, just kind of doing a review of the module in case anybody's thinking of running it. I would just for right now give a high level non spoiler thoughts on it, and then do a spoiler section, right? So let's just start with the non spoilery stuff and then get into the adventure for maybe 5 minutes just to kind of give a DM's point of view of it and what I liked and what I didn't like. Let's at least start from the high level overview, non spoiler. Um, sure. So I've done a lot of modules. I played a lot of 1E back in my youth. Okay. It took a long break, right? I toyed with 3E and 4E, but enough to learn the rules and maybe play one campaign over a summer or something. But I really can't say I played those versions with any amount of um, length, right? I don't know those rules too well. And if you notice when I am online and playing, I still flash back to my 1E days and some of the rules. And this was kind of a good way of getting back into it and get my head around some of the rules and spells and changes and so forth. But that aside, I've played a boatload of modules. Um, I really liked, for the most part, the story behind Descent into Avernus. The story was really first rate. I liked it a lot. I think it was entertaining to the people who were in the group. So yeah, I I gotta recommend the module definitely. Um, there are certainly some things I would tweak and did tweak, and I'll talk about that in the spoilers section. But I think there's a good reason when I look on some of the sites, a lot of folks are playing this module. I think it's definitely worth the time, and it really takes. I'm trying not to spoil nothing, but yeah, I mean, how many times do you get to go into hell and do some cool stuff, right? Um, its backstory, the whole thing, yes. If you're thinking about getting it, I would say definitely. It is definitely worth your time. Um, and yeah, I think it was good. I think it was story aside, right? The module itself, I'll get into in terms of running it, but I think your group will have fun going through it. I think there's a lot of good points in here, and I would give it a solid B, B plus, somewhere in that area, probably close to the B plus. I don't think it's an A module. I think the story is an A. I think there's a couple places where the story, not the story itself, but the module fell a little short, and the DM can work to fix that up. But we'll give it a B plus. I think that was worth it. It was, I would say, not top tier, but high mid tier in my opinion. So that aside, spoiler time. I want to get into some spoilers of the module. So if you haven't played it, if or then go away unless you're a DM I will give my DM thoughts of the module, and we'll go from there. Um, so okay, spoiler, 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 run away, go. Okay, let's talk. If you're still here, it's your fault. Um, the module's really broke into what I felt was a clear three parts, right? The first part I liked a lot, which was um the city disappeared off the map, the city of El Terrell, and the heroes are in Boulder's Gate. They find out about it, and they are hired to look into some of the mysteries inside Boulder's Gate from the aftermath of that. And I thought it was a really clever story on how you find out. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. You all can read it. But this is basically, you know, chapter one, basically. Um, it runs really nice. It's a great story. You find out some clues on what happened to El Troel while you're in Boulder's Gate, and you take action on that. The encounters you have there, there's a couple that you might have to tweak a little bit, depending on how many players you have and the strength of group. But solid, well done, really well put together story. There's definitely in Boulder's Gate a lot of fluff you can put into it. Like if you look here, there's a Boulder's Gate Gazier section, and they talk about the history, the government, the religion, the upper city, the lower city. They give you some background on some of the people who rule or leaders in Boulder's Gate, and it's very lightly put together. You can, for the most part, ignore it, and probably should, unless it's part of a bigger campaign that you have going on in Boulder's Gate, and you're putting this module in there. Um, it's not overly necessary. If you stick with the story and follow that path, it will be a clear um, storyline that takes you where you want the characters to go. In fact, if you have a slight complaint about this module overall, this is very leading. So there is a path that you will follow. And it is very much less of here's a small world, universe, city, and the um, adventurers can go and explore. There's a couple spots, like I said, in Boulder's Gate, they do through some stuff here and there. But generally, you as the DM, if that's what you want, you're going to have to create that part. And the story itself is very much step one, step two, step three, step four. You will be given those clear spots, and you will follow that plot path throughout, not just chapter one, but almost the entire module. So if you don't like that, like I'm starting to read um Tomb of Annihilation, and I'm not going to give anything away with that, but it's Tomb of Annihilation. First time reading through it is almost like the opposite. Here's your world, go figure it out. If you stumble in the right place, the wrong place, whatever, good luck. Right? This is very much opposite. So anyway, chapter one, story, what finishing up in the material plane and getting to Avernus, pretty spot on. No worries. Get to Avernus in chapter two. You get into the city of El Terrell. Again, a pretty well written story of trying to fight your way into meeting what's left of the leadership of the city, and it works well. That's all I can say. It was well done. Um, the fights were fine. They all made sense. Um, yeah, it worked out really well. Chapter two. Um, chapter three is where you get a little funky. So you're in the city of Al Terrell in hell. You do your thing there, and now you're going down into hell itself, out of the city limits, as it were, and you're in hell. But I mean, on the you know something that wasn't sucked into hell, hell itself, I guess, however you want to word it. Um, that was okay. Like at first, it's fine. You know, the story takes you along to certain locations, and that's fine at the start. And then a lot of people describe it as Mad Max, where in hell they're building these war machines that are run on souls, and you can make this, and it's again, they have the characters, they have the bare bones outline where you can make this into Mad Max in hell and have a whole blast doing that. That being said, I didn't like that part. And I don't think my group was into that either because you're presented with the story of Avernus, and it's very, again, cookie cutter. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. You are really pulled along the plot. And the whole Mad Max thing, if your group is into that, you could have fun for a number of sessions living that out. But it has squatta, nothing to really move along the central plot line for saving the city and getting your ass out of there. If you want to live Mad Max and D&D, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But it feels totally out of place where you're in this story with a storyline that you are grabbed by the nose and pull through, and then all of a sudden you have this side quest thing, and like the characters are into saving the city, and then you have this nothing where you can just romp and do whatever, right? Now you can scatter that in as you make think it makes sense as your group goes along. Um, I as a DM, I kind of yes, I have plans, but I also do things on the fly a little bit. I see where the group is going and how they move along, and yeah, I don't think my group would have been into that, and I think it would have been a waste of a couple sessions to try to force that on them. But if you like that, go for it. Um, but it wasn't for us. So I had like a part of that, like maybe half a session, and my group was ready to do the next thing to save the city, and they didn't give two hoots about playing Mad Max. Oh well, but yeah, that was I thought the biggest thing didn't really make sense. If you wanted to do that, there should have been more in the story that ties that into saving El Terrell. Maybe one of those warlords had something that you needed and you had to hunt that down, whatever it might be. Now, of course, you as a DM, you can do that. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but I didn't see the point of it. Sorry. And again, in a different setting, different storyline, where it was more free throw, where they throw a world at you, it would have made sense. Not here. That's my 2 cents. Anyway, you get done that, you get a choice of two paths, which was really interesting. I don't know if it just worked out really well or whoever designed this part um really nailed it. Really nailed it. Because you had a choice at this point, and I'm talking about this here. Oh, fudge. Doesn't highlight very well. This part here. Where they have a choice between the path of demons and the path of devils. So they get to a point where there's a fork and they can choose which adventure in a sense they want to go, right? And it's presented in the story as a path where um demons are spawned or where demons die, right? Or get killed, eliminated, whatever, right? Either this was again, either this was super clever or um it just worked out perfectly. One or the other for us. So, given that choice, what would you take? A place where demons spawn or a place where demons killed? I'd pick the kill. The players in the group picked that because they thought, crap, go somewhere where demons spawn? That doesn't sound very friendly. But over here, the demons die. And we're kind of on the devil side a little bit, kind of, sort of, not really. But yeah, the demons are invading, the devils are a little bit less, they're less chaotic, right? So there's some level where you can negotiate to a degree. Um, they picked where the demons die, Path of Devils. Really interesting. When I read this, I thought this was another one of the weaker parts of the chapter. I want to go in this a little detail because this was really, yeah. So in the Path of Devils, you're basically pulled through what seems like a very superficial um number of people you meet, where it's just like, okay, this guy here, he can he can move you along the storyline. Like he has the information that you need. To get the information from him, you have to do a favor and talk to this guy. And then to get that guy to do what you want, you have to do a favor for this guy, right? And this takes time, right? But you get on this path where you have like two or three people that you have to satisfy, and then the rewards flow, right? I thought that was really weak sauce. But at the end of that path, you are faced with a very strong moral decision that you have to make to get the last item. To get what you need, you have a strong moral. And that's if you watch the videos, you have to kill a good creature and then an evil guy. In this case, it was like a unicorn or one of the people who follow you on the adventure and one of the NPCs. And that was a really tough choice. I think 90 some percent of the time, no one would ever probably kill the unicorn or a good creature. But in this case, the group agonized that for quite a bit. And eventually, one of them did the deed and almost had uh, player versus player fight on our hands. Um, it worked out, but I think my 2 cents. And if you would have presented that choice in the beginning, everyone would have probably said, "Screw it, we'll take the other path, the path of demons." The fact that they role played for a couple of hours before they were presented that challenge, the idea of taking the other path kind of passed from their mind, and they felt they had to do it. Or and yeah, and I think again, either whoever thought through that was really clever and really have a good understanding of how people think and how they put it together. But that really worked out a heck of a lot better than I thought I was going to. I really did. Um, so in theory, you could have gotten to that point, said, "Screw this, we're not killing the good creature," and then gone down the other path that in some ways would have been easier. And yeah, I mean, what can I say? Um, it worked out really well that it gave them a really strong moral dilemma. And it was really tough to get my group to do that. They were just really not willing to deal with the devils. And I tried a couple different ways to see if I can worm my way into them. But they were just like, nope, we ain't going there. Um, I guess another point on that as well around the same time. Um, and maybe this is a 1E influence, but I'm gonna go with it. I also kind of felt that magic items were really scarce throughout this whole thing. Now that being said, and we talked about this after the last adventure part of it, part 13. I know that in general, 5E and 1E really differ in the fact that in 1E magic was much more plentiful, less so in 5E. But I kind of felt that going from level 1 to level 13, and you pretty much have the same equipment the entire time, just didn't feel right, right? There's just not a like you gotta throw something to kind of help the group along. Now, if you really don't want to, this could be a way of getting the group to make um the deals with the devils to try and get some item. But it's tough because I mean basically the devils want your soul for the most part, and they can do some other things for little items. But I made the decision that, and it kind of hints at this in the module, well, more than hints, it pretty much tells you that Bell and some other demons, excuse me, devils in hell resent Zariel being in charge of the first plane of hell. She's an angel for Christ's sakes. So I'm or a fallen angel. But I mean, hey, these devils, they're working their butts off trying to move up the chain of command of hell. And then all of a sudden this good guy comes in and, you know, does a couple things and kills a few demons, and Asmodeus makes her the next ruler of the first plane of hell. What the heck is that? So certain devils have um certainly some skin in the game here to try and get Zariel out or make it look bad. And I decided that one of the devils was going to allow them to get a magic item each up to a certain level of power. I think it was uncommon. I forget. To try like you could I mean, by the rule of law, you could maybe say devils wouldn't do that. But in this case, it's following what the devil needs. The devil, in this case, Bel, for example, he got ousted from hell. Um, well, not ousted from hell, but ousted as being the leader of hell's forces in the Blood War, and replaced by Zariel, right? And also made Zariel's lieutenant. And the module says flat out the two people can't stand each other, right? So if Bell can feed a couple nominal magic items to him, to the party, to try and allow them to be more successful into embarrassing or maybe even converting Zariel back to good, um, yeah, why not? What the hell does he care if he gives like a plus one or two weapon or a plus two shield? Or what is that for trying to um, further his cause along for a group of characters who are really making some headway in trying to liberate the city, right? So that's why I decided, and I played that part up and made that up to try and feed that folks a magic item. Um, I also thought because of the weakness of the Mad Max part that this module, side note as well, doesn't use experience but uses milestone, and the milestones weren't fitting in the mid part of the adventure, the experience. So I felt in the beginning people were leveling up at a good pace. After they get into off of out of Elturel and into the ground floor of hell, as it were, they the amount you were leveling up wasn't keeping up with what the characters were doing. And okay, if you want to play it that way, fine, go for it. But it just felt that the part of the story didn't quite work, including the path part. You were leveling them up too fast, and it just seemed like the story was just trying to get you to level 13 for the end as quick as possible as you went through these sections. So again, a downside. So you get through all that, and then for the end of the module, it's fairly solid. Um, Getting the sword that you're going for, thumbs up, works well. I thought that storyline worked really, really well, and that part was just solid, great stuff. Um, the very end is interesting, right? Um, it did kind of work out. I tweaked it a bit. The first thing is that you're pulled through the nose throughout this whole module, right? And then at the end, you have to decide for yourself what's going to happen to Avernus and what you want to try and do to free the city and possibly convert Zariel. Um, it it worked, and the group liked it, right? They generally seemed to like it. It worked well, but they also kind of felt like, and maybe this is partially because I had a lot of high schoolers and college kids who's only played D&D off and on for a couple of years, and I don't think for the most part maybe one of them had played a D&D bought module before. They're used to more homegrown stuff. They just they had some ideas, but it's felt like they couldn't quite get there, right? On what they should do. And I didn't feel they were going to figure out some people they could talk to help them out. That's my 2 cents, right? And they struggled with that certainly a few hours ago. But in the end, um, they did try to convert Zariel. And I thought this wasn't right either, where you really only get one shot to convert Zariel, right? And I guess there's some level of realism there. But um, one die roll for what's going to be months of play to convert the person, eh, you got to realize if that's what you're going to go with, then odds are you're going to have to fight to free the city without her, right? And you know, it might not be in a successful campaign. You might end up dying or have to make some other choice, right? Which is life, but um didn't feel right. So I want to give my folks a second shot, and they were able to make it fairly on the second shot, and they did get the person to convert. So I thought the end again gave you that high level outline of what you can do and some ideas. But I think if you went by the letter of the law, realistically, you're going to end up fighting Zariel at the end, maybe dying, or they have to figure out an escape. And then who knows how many sessions you might have, depending how you want to figure it out, for them to figure out who they can ally with. And a Tiamat was a strong possibility, really, or Bell, or maybe some of the folks on the demon side, which they didn't weren't thinking about either. Maybe we could make a deal with the demons who are invading, try and oust Zariel. The group as the whole, at least in this case, wasn't coming up with ideas. I don't necessarily know it was their fault. Because again, they were led by the nose the whole way. Um, Maybe a more experienced group who had played for decades would have came up with that. But it was a little weak sauce at the end. Like even myself, I'm gonna go talk to Tiamat and say, "Hey, you want me to go get this guy?" And just because a couple of level 13, 12, 13 level characters are knocking at Tiamat's door, she's gonna say, "Oh yeah, you've been the people I'm looking for all the time. Let's go kick her ass." I don't know. Um, Depends how you want to play it. Um, but it worked out. They made it in the end. I was, if they missed that last die roll, ready for all hell to break loose, pun intended. And it didn't. They got the mega happy ending. And it was fine. It was fine. So I think that's my high level thing and some ideas and a synopsis of what we played. And what if you're a DM watching this and want to think about changing or tweaking for your group, and where I found the few, in my opinion, were weak points. Again, I think it's a solid B plus. I think that the storyline really was excellent, and it's worth playing for sure, right? But there's certainly some stuff that you'll have to tweak for your own guys. That's it. I hope people found this useful. If you're looking to play this, and have a good night. Later.